There is no intro.
There's no intro.
No.
So I can just keep talking.
Just keep talking.
Cool. Yeah. No. On that topic, I was on LinkedIn yesterday, and I came across this thing, and his post said, "I'm starting to lean in hard on only working with and hiring and promoting people that have a super high quotient of figure it the fuck out." Does
Yeah.
anyone else agree? And it was like people were just like, yes, 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 yes. Like, look at this. I can't stand like the fact that people just have problems and come to you and they just don't figure it out. It's like, what? Like, when did that happen? When did that become the norm? And I feel like the more people I talk to, it's like internally, externally, peers, builders, other industries. It's just a constant topic.
Yeah. I think I saw that post. You might have liked it, and then I saw it, but I
That's
know
how
which one
LinkedIn
you're
works,
talking
yeah.
about.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was listening to Andy Frisell the other day, and he was talking about how sometimes he cares too much. And he's like, every time I have a problem, and and it was with Ed Milet. So it was the both of them talking on a call. And he's like, yeah, every time I have a problem, what's the problem? I care too much. And I was thinking about that. I was like, damn, yeah, I just need to give less shits because
But you can't.
Yeah, well, you can, you can't. Like, I'm starting to let some more things go this year, and just like, hey, why am I going to worry about this? What is stressing about this going to do? And it's actually started to take some weight off.
Yeah, no, I guess it depends on what light you look at that in, because I when I was at the Jocko thing, him and I were chatting about, my micromanaging, and it basically, like, to summarize our conversation, a lot of times we were getting 97% of the way there, my team and I, like, we were getting 97% of the way there, and I come in last minute, I'm like, let's get it to 100.
Yeah.
And they're like, but it's an A plus. It's like, I know, but it should be 100. And he's like, you were damaging relationships with these guys that put their fucking best foot forward for 2-3%. It's like when you walk away from that, it's still an A plus, and literally everyone else feels great about it except that you have this ego to be better.
Yeah,
I was like, all right, fine.
Like a lot of people, I think, especially initially struggle with that when you scale a business or when you become a new leader over people, and your standards up here, and you know how to do it perfectly, and you'd rather probably just do it yourself perfectly, but you can't do it perfectly. You can't do everything perfectly because, you can, but then it'd be you and a cabinet shop,
But
just
even
working.
still, I haven't really talked about this, but a conversation came up as to why I do so much on social media and why I share so much. And we were talking for a while, and then I actually, for the first time, realized that before social media, I was part of message boards, and it was all the forums, and any interest I had, I was on that forum. And I had started sharing what I was doing, with my hobbies a long time ago. And I was I was building I was building a truck, and I would work on this truck. I would take photos with my digital camera. I would upload them to Photo Bucket, and I would upload them to the forum, and I would add a bunch of like descriptions as to what I did that weekend, and I would get feedback. And like, that was like when I started this whole, share what I do, learn from it, and improve. But my point is I ended up getting the truck I was putting the truck back together, and I had learned so much that I stopped and I took it back apart and did it again, because I was like, I learned so much from all that feedback. Aaron, I did that 4 times.
What?
To the point, 4 times. And because I was like, now I've learned even more, so I can make this better. And I can't, to this day, it's still in pieces, because I've learned every time I do it, I learn so much, and I'm like, I can do this better. I can do this better. So there is no perfect. Like, that first time, I think I'm doing everything perfect. I think this is coming out amazing. And then when I get to, close to that end, it was like, but I could do it just a little bit better. So why not take time to go backwards and do it? So
yeah, but I think with you, what I think is cool, and I wish I want to go back to the East Coast to see some of your other projects. I know you've got
Mhm.
a fat one going on right now. We'll probably talk about, but
Bro,
I the one I saw was that it was in one of those like traditional Boston homes.
brownstone,
So
yeah.
it's a brownstone in
Mhm,
Boston, right in town. So it's multiple levels. I go into this house, it's like almost done, and
mhm,
you're taking me through all the details and finish work of this place. I've never seen anything quite like it because and I've been in some nice houses. Like I grew up
mm,
in some fancy houses. But
yeah,
the level of detail and thoughtfulness was so impressive to me, and I love that kind of stuff. Like the little outlet things that
yeah,
cover the outlet, and so you have to take a little magnet and like the outlet cover. It's not one of those stupid plastic ones. It's the exact same material and fits perfectly flush with the wall. So
yeah,
it's all it is just the little prong holes, and then to take
mhm,
it off you need a mat, like stuff like that. You think, how do you guys figure that out? How do you think about that? And you're not on these job sites every day. You don't do the building yourself, so you've been able to figure out how to translate that into this
mhm.
business now, which I think is super cool.
Well, I think I don't really know if I have the answer to it, but I think that my time is spent, less on site, but I'm still active enough where when I am on site, I can interact with my team and help provide guidance and provide feedback as to what we're doing and talk about the details that either I care about or we all should care about or I've learned from. So, it's funny that project is the one I forgot I brought you through that project, but we did another one around the corner. And I actually hadn't, I went in there when we just finished it, but I hadn't been there in a long time. And it was just a really quick delivery. And I just never really got an opportunity to appreciate it. And I had a vendor in town. They wanted to see us up a couple projects, and I brought them to that house. And I go into it, and I do this all the time, and I remind myself, I'm like, don't go in there and just point out all the stuff that you messed up, because that's what I
Hmm.
look at. I look at all the details that could have been better, like the silly little things, and I in my mind I keep saying it to myself, and I was like, just let them walk around and appreciate what we've done. And I was walking with them, and I started doing the same thing and realizing, shit, man, like we really nailed it here. Like the detail is like it's really well done. And he said the same thing. He was like, listen, Nick, I've been in some insane homes, $50 million homes, insane detail. And he's like, you guys really, you really thought through, and you were really intentional with how everything came together. And it's not 100% on us, like, working with good partners and obviously good trades and good design. But ultimately, the buck stops with us, and it's up to us to make sure that we execute on that. And I think there's a lot of accountability that's held. Myself and Julian, who runs operations, we're on site once a week. And when stuff isn't right, we're either pushing on each other or pushing on our team and saying, hey, that's not going to end up where we want it to. So we have to take it out, and we have to redo it, and just
Yeah.
having no exception with that. We don't, we're not going to, it's very rare, if ever, that we just allow it to be what it is.
Hmm.
Even if it's good, even if it's good enough, if it's not the best that we could have done in that moment, then we're it's a high likelihood that we're ripping it out and doing it again.
Yeah, which I just, especially in building stuff and especially residential construction, that is
Yeah,
so far from the norm. It's so far from the norm. I mean, I watch some of the guys build the houses around here. It's like, how does that thing stand up and down a
I know.
year later, 2 years later? Or a lot of times, like these apartment buildings they're building around here, they're redoing parts of like the facade, and it's a brand new building. And
Dude,
and you're like, hey, like what
so
happened there? Because that's brand new.
Aaron, where I live, um, in South Boston, there's a lot less regulation in terms of, like historic preservation and just like what buildings can look like. So it's kind of a free for all.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that are calling themselves developers and or builders that are building these apartment buildings and condo buildings. And every building that goes up, my wife, it's a joke to my wife because she's like, all right, do you want to start the clock now? Because within 6 months, there'll be a boom lift in front of that building, guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's every single building. It's not just a few of them. It's been every one. And, I was watching one go up and it had this precast facade. And I'm watching them put precast on it. And every time we pulled up the light, I'd stare out the window and my wife would record me. And, just because she thought it was ridiculous. And she goes, what's wrong now? I'm like, I'll tell you, all the steel is not thermally bridged. It's going to create mold in that apartment. People are going to be living in there. They're going to be sick, not understanding why. They're going to go to the doctor and realize that they have asthma now. It's a huge issue.
Yeah.
But it's, a building right down the street from that looked totally fine. All of a sudden, one day, the entire building, less than 5 years old, entire building is scaffolding. They ripped all the brick off the building to start over. They left everyone inside. They left the sheetrock. They ripped the brick off, the Tyvek, and all the plywood, re-insulated, put the plywood back, and re-bricked the building because
Holy
it leaked
smokes.
and it rotted. But then that's frustrating to me because that's ultimately, in one way or the other, that's who we compete with.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the monster that we're doing that you're talking about, like that's a spec for us. So now I'm building this product that is way beyond what a spec is, and and essentially going to sell it at a record breaking price for this to be a success for us. But I'm competing with someone down the street that's building on spec and at a lesser quality, and then going just straight for, hey, square foot cost, this is apples to apples. That house is overpriced. It's like overpriced based on square foot cost, but not overpriced on execution and quality.
Yeah, but it's like at face value, a similar product. I think you're catering to a whole different demographic because
Yeah,
there's some people that just want a big fancy house, and that's all
yeah,
that matters. They just want a big fancy house. I go into some of these big fancy houses. I'm like, it's not even that nice. Like
no,
for how much money you're spending on this thing, I don't know, man. I'd
yeah,
much rather have a much smaller house that's really well done. But I think there are people out there that really, 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 really care about those very fine details, and I don't
yeah.
think it'll be a
It's
problem.
No, I don't. I don't think it's going to be a problem either, and I'm confident that we can sell it. It's it's just a different approach because instead of building a house for 1,000 people that want it, you're building it for one, and your
Yeah.
your marketing effort is, I need to go find that one person, not I need to get 1,000 people to fall in love with this and then fight for it.
Uh-huh.
So it's just a
Is this
different
the
it's
first
just a
time?
different approach.
Have you done spec before?
No.
So this is your first time, and for people that don't know, what is spec?
Speculative build means that we're building it with the intent to sell.
Yeah,
So there's
but
no
there's
client
no.
involved.
Yeah.
We handle design and we build it, and then it's quote unquote goes to the market and someone buys it.
Why do that this year? Why take on the risk? Because there is significant risk to that, isn't there?
Yes.
Yeah.
um yes, there is. Why do it? Because we we look at it as an opportunity to fast track our growth into
Mhm.
the market that we want to be in. It's a very
Mm,
specific product. It's modern. It's not a home that you're gonna just find a client that comes up to you and says, "Hey, I want to build this style home." It's different, and it's designed to be a portfolio builder. So we're
mhm,
gonna build the product that we want to build, that we enjoy, with from the design aesthetic and the complexity and everything, and we'll sell it, but also market the hell out of it, and with the
mm.
goal to sell it to a client, but also then get someone in there like, "Hey, I love this. I want you to build mine."
I see.
So
I
it's,
see.
for I've been in business 10 years, and it started as a carpentry company, turned into a remodeling company, and then we started building new homes, but it's this slow progression. All the guys that I'm quote unquote competing with have been in business for, 40 years. And
Mm-hmm.
if they're newer in business, they were at some of these other these other companies for 15, 20 years and then went off on their own. I'm young. So
Yeah.
I'm competing with a portfolio with these guys that is super deep. They've been around for a very long time. They built a lot of homes. We're just we haven't.
Mm.
So it's, I look at it as, all right, let's do this. Let's go all the way to where we want to be and put the product out there so then we attract the clientele that we want. Because a
I
lot of
see.
people are like, "Hey, Nick, just go. Why if it's your first one, why not just do something simple? Why not do like a just a regular house, make some money, and then eventually do the crazy shit?" I was like, "Why would I do that?
Uh-huh.
I don't want to. That's not what I want to be building. That's not what my team wants to be building.
Mm.
And who knows how long I'm on this planet for? It's like I'm just going to delay doing what I want to do because someone thinks it's safer."
It makes perfect sense to me. Actually, after you explain it, I don't live in this world, so I don't
Yeah,
even get the whole residential construction world. But you explaining it makes perfect sense. But this isn't like, I mean, this is a nice house based on,
yeah.
and I've only seen the renderings because, like, how far along are you? You've done the foundation of it. Is it framed even yet?
Footings are in.
Okay, so
Foot,
footings are in. So
yeah. Foundation
nothing's out of the
walls go
ground
in
yet.
next. No, foundation walls go in. We start forming them Monday.
Yeah. Okay. Um, but the based on the renderings, this
Hmm.
is a gonna be a baller house. A baller
Yeah,
house.
it's over 8 million.
Yeah, yeah. How many? Like, how big is it? How many square feet?
7,100.
Okay, yeah. So that's a pretty sizable estate.
Yeah,
Jeez.
3 car
How?
garage,
Man.
but crazy materials. Like the materiality is super interesting. The cladding is actually a C-shaped brick, and we're
Mm,
importing it from Denmark, from Peterson
mm,
Tegel, oldest brick manufacturer in the world.
really?
And it hangs on the side of the building like a clapboard, but there's no mortar. So the facade is considered like a 200-year facade. So there's
Wow.
no paint, there's no mortar to fail. It's just this hung cladding detail that from afar will have this New England-esque, shingle clapboard aesthetic. But as you approach it, you realize it's this brick and it goes up the
Mm,
wall and across the roof. So then you get
mm,
that modern monolithic look. It's really cool. Like Vincent and his team at If Possible, they when we started the design, he was like, "How far can I push this?" I'm like, "Go for it, dude." He's
yeah.
like, "What? Like, do you think we can pull it off?" I'm like, "I have no idea. We're gonna try."
Wow. How do you building this? How do you finance it through like a bank? Is it like a
So
construction
that
loan essentially?
yes, but 10 people. I got declined 10 times, and then found a partner that had more of a reputation in this world,
Mm,
that basically understood what I was trying to do and wanted to be. I got very lucky,
yeah.
and he was like, "I want to be more creative and do cooler shit." And he was a client of ours and understood the quality of work. And he's kind of the same mentality. He's like, "Let's just figure it out. Let's do this. Like, I don't want to build boring stuff anymore. This is super interesting. Let's figure this out." And if based on the the tenacity that we've had in building custom and just pushing the limit of what we can do, put that same mentality to building spec and put something on the market that no one's seen. So yeah, there's a bank and there's people involved that can bring money to the table, and then there's the whole side of bringing in the right partners and vendor relationships that I can leverage, and finding people that are aligned with the common goal, and building, hey, like, we're doing this is good for us but also good for you. So your product is something that we use on every build. Do you want to be part of this?
Mm.
And we've been successful on that side of it too.
And yeah, so you're helping the vendors win by also making it a great, essentially like a marketing piece for
Hmm.
one, just an enjoyable project. Because I think true craftsmen, they they take great pride in what they create and build.
Mhm.
And I think building stuff is oftentimes very similar to creative work. If not, it is creative work. I think
Mhm.
in its most pure form. But I think a lot of people build stuff to make money and to make ends meet, and that's what you have to do as a business. You have to take on those projects that you're not super passionate about, but do pay the bills so that you can
Yeah.
do those projects that you
Yeah.
are very proud of and passionate about.
We
So
still
you
do
give
that.
them, yeah, yeah, yeah. I do that. We everybody I feel like does that, but uh, so you're able to give your vendors this platform though to like really
Mhm.
express themselves and their abilities, and then you also allow them to take that and market themselves
Yeah.
in the way that you're doing with your business. It's like that's pretty sweet.
Well, you know, I I've done a lot of the brand partnerships and getting vendor collaborations and getting product and promoting it, but just it's promotion through visibility. Very
Mm,
rarely am I like, look at this product, it's the best thing in the world. I own like
yeah.
it's very much just visibility. And I found out 2 weeks ago that one of the vendors that we work with, I've never asked like, hey, is this ever helpful? Like how successful is it? But they were getting super stingy with the fact that, what product we were using, how it was being installed. And I'm like, why are they being such a pain in the ass? And the architect hopped on a call with them and he called me after. He goes, I found out why they were being such a pain in the ass. And I was like, why? I'm like, is it that every time we do a video that their product is in, they get 100 phone calls
Mm,
for, hey, I want that product or I want to do that same detail Nick did. And I was like,
mm,
interesting. And
mm-hmm.
and so that like that's great. And the flip side of that is I've experienced the opposite where I've unintentionally bashed a vendor. And I did this
Yeah.
post years ago about a stone manufacturer. And the post was not to bash them, not nothing. It was I had a stone failure and I had posted this clip and it was just me saying, "Hey, I'm dealing with this stone failure. We just did this beautiful kitchen. It cracked. I unfortunately didn't get any support from the vendor. So, as a builder, my job is to be there for my client. So I'm going to replace the stone and I'll figure out on the back end how to cover that cost." That was it. Like in summary,
Mm-hmm.
I got a phone call, a very angry phone call from the vendor. They had 200 order cancellations come in because of the product failure that I posted about. And
Oh.
of course, I'm like, well, that was not my intent. Like like very, obviously very sorry. And you know, I was like, but you should have helped me. Like this,
Yeah.
this was a product failure. Um, But the point is like there's a lot of power there. There's a lot of influence behind what we've built with the media side. So, it does give us the opportunity to work with vendors and put them into these projects and talk about them in a way that helps their business. And ultimately, like every vendor that we're partnering with, it's not designed to be one time. We have a vendor
Mm-hmm.
right now that we're in negotiation with where it's like, hey, based on this, is like I want you to be our spec forever. So every time we use the product that you sell, it's only your spec, and it's
Mm-hmm.
not like the client doesn't get the option, whether it's custom or whether it's a spec house. We're always using your product because we believe in it, and then you create the consistency behind what that brand looks like to the end user.
Yeah, I've learned because I guess we've built a significant platform, and
I
I've
guess.
learned talking negatively about stuff is almost always a losing proposition.
Yeah.
And so I've learned more so, hey, you know, I get people screw you all the time. But then it's like, all right, I'm not going to talk bad. I'm not going to do that because that's just not a very good look for me, but you're not ever going on this platform again.
Right.
Like, I'm not giving you a single minute of airtime
Right.
ever again. And I intend to make this platform 100 times more valuable than it is today. So,
Yeah.
I maybe you don't care now, but I don't forget, man.
Right.
I am not like a goldfish when it comes to that. And I'm gonna be friendly. I'm gonna play ball. I'm not
Totally.
gonna talk a bunch of shit, but there's no more airtime. Like that, we're done. We're done.
Right.
And I'm going to give those that I really enjoy and care about all the airtime. And that to me has been a lot more productive.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, dude, I'm sure you deal with it too, but one of the supers that works for me, wasn't on Instagram, and he joined a couple weeks ago, and he called me. He was like, "Hey, I just joined Instagram." I'm like, "Awesome." He goes,
Mm-hmm.
"No, thanks. This is insane. I'm reading the comments on your post right now. Like, why is everyone so mean?" I'm like, "Oh, I've been doing this for 10 years, man. It's pretty typical. Like, I get made fun
Yeah.
of for what I wear, that I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, that the detail that I'm talking about is a crappy detail. And like, and my response is always, I've always taken the empathy response, or I'm just like, "Hey man, I appreciate I appreciate you watching the whole video." It
Mm-hmm.
was like someone posted the other day, was like, "I just waste 30 seconds of my life watching this video." I'm like, "Oh, I appreciate you watching the video."
I always say that, and
Yeah.
it makes them even more angry. Like, dude, I appreciate you taking the time to comment on my video
Yeah.
because it's just really nice of you.
Yeah.
I think you get a lot of negativity too in your stuff because it's like everybody has some experience with remodeling a kitchen or something along those
Of
lines,
course.
and it's
Yeah.
it's very like while building up this beautiful spec home is not even remotely accessible, people still think it's accessible because they've remodeled their kitchen or something like
Right.
that. And so I think because everybody lives in a home and has been around it, they think that they know best.
Yeah.
And because I guess like in the world I operate within, yeah, I get some of that. And there's always like the operators that have been around the block and think they know better than everybody else. But oftentimes there's not a lot of criticism because it's just not as accessible of a world.
Mhm. Right.
But yeah, your world is like
Well, dude,
everybody
your
lives in a
concrete
house.
pipe. The concrect pipe was like a perfect example on your end.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
"You
yeah,
can't bend
yeah.
that." I'm like, "Dude, I
No,
can't wait to follow this."
it's like, but like you can't like that kind of stuff. You just laugh because you're
Of
like,
course.
but you
It's like,
all you're doing by commenting.
imagine never doing this in your life and questioning whether or not a $1 billion site work company is installing concrete pipe correctly.
Well, and that's the funny thing. Like by you commenting, you're saying, all this comment says is, I don't know what I'm talking about
Yeah.
because it's like, no, you're anybody that knows what they're talking about knows this is possible.
Yeah.
It cracks me up. It's so funny every time.
Yeah.
So fun.
It's, and for me, like, I've grown to just, you know, deal with, like, it doesn't bother me. And, it bothers a lot of my team, so I try to, like, encourage them not to take it to heart. Most of the time, it's insulting me personally. Like, I get made fun of for my jeans being too tight,
I've seen
and
that. I've seen that.
and
I've
so
seen
I
that
have the same response. I'm like, "Hey, eyes are up here, dude." And one guy, like, most of the time they don't respond, but one dude got super mad at me. He goes, "I wasn't looking." I was like, "Well, how did you see my jeans?" He goes, "What the fuck's wrong with you?" I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "You just." I'm like, "You know what? I'm not gonna we're good here. Like, I appreciate you." But the most recent, like, the one that recently got to me is that it was like 6:15 in the morning and my phone rang. I'm like, "That's weird." I'm like, "No one," like, if I didn't answer it. This guy left a 7-minute voicemail about how I was going to be an advocate for our industry, then I should be ashamed at the way that we insulated a house, and that the way we insulated it was absolutely atrocious. There was gaps everywhere, that it wasn't installed correctly. And I was like, "Man, like, this guy's like, he came across as very respectful in the way he wanted to deliver this, but then just went like full on, you're wrong."
Yeah.
And I brushed off, and I was like, "You know what? No, like, when someone challenges the way I do something, I always follow up and make sure, hey, did I do it wrong?" And I kicked the video over to our installation vendor. I was like, "Hey, can you watch this?" He goes, "Oh, I was going to watch it later." I'm like, "Watch it now." I'm like, "Just watch it and tell me if there's one scene in this clip that we did something wrong, tell me. Like, any of it, because I'll open
Mm-hmm.
the wall up and I'll fix it." And he goes, "No, that's a class 1 install." I'm like, "Okay." So I just, in a follow-up YouTube video, I had said, "Hey, to the guy that called me, I just want to let you know I talked to the installation vendor, and they said class 1 install. So I appreciate you calling me at 6:15 in the morning, but we're good. Everything's installed correctly. I appreciate it."
I in a way though, I respect criticism like that because at
Mhm.
least they call you and
Mhm.
let's talk, like they had the intent to talk to you about it. And
Totally.
I respect that. I totally
Yeah.
respect that. It's when
That's
people
why it
are
bothered me.
What I really don't like is when people are weaselly. Totally respect criticism if it's delivered in a constructive way, even if I
Totally.
don't agree with it. It's the weaselly stuff that I'm not a big fan of.
Yeah. And if they're insulting me, I'll just leave it. I'll lightly engage to keep it going. If they insult someone else in my team, then I just block them.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah,
dude, like you're providing zero value and you're just wasting my time. So see you later.
yeah, yeah. I have done that quite a bit too. Like
Yeah.
you have to be pretty comfortable with just blocking people because then it's like you block
Yeah.
them and then they're never an issue again. You're like,
Right.
why don't I do this more? This is so nice.
Oh, dude, I unfollow, block, like,
Yep,
but then
I've been
a
doing
bunch of
that.
people have this like unfollow app that tells you when people unfollow you. So I unfollowed a
Yeah.
bunch of people, and they messaged me like, "Hey, why'd you unfollow me?" I'm like, "Oh my god!" I was like, "Do I tell you that I hate like your stuff is uninspiring, or do I just give you the benefit of the doubt?" And I was
Yeah.
just like,
Well,
I was like, "Oh, that's so weird. It must have been a glitch."
something. Have you muted people, especially on
Yeah,
Instagram?
I do that all the time now. That's
It
I stopped unfollowing and just mute people.
Muting people
I'm like,
is
"Oh, story
legit.
and profile, please."
Yes. Yeah. I've done a lot of that. And it's like it's nothing personal against anybody else. It's
No.
just like I'm honestly to the point where I'm just spending a lot of my time here and
Yeah,
I've got to protect myself and my mind and where I'm at, my focus. And that's the system I need is I just need less stuff to look at. And if I've
yeah,
seen it all, then like, it's like, all right, I need to get the hell out of here. So I've just been just muting people because it's just like, let me clean this up so that
yeah,
I
it's just
just see
it's
what
getting
I
to
need to
be
see.
such bullshit, man. Like I said,
Yeah.
I was talking to, actually Julian the other day, and, you know, my day is so busy, and then I go home, I got 4 kids, they're like maniacs, I'm getting them fed, and, getting them in bed, it's 10 o'clock at this point, I wanna get more work done, but I'm not going to. And if my wife's out, then it's like I'm on my phone and scrolling, and it's like the doom scroll. Next thing I know, I'm
Yeah.
watching some Persian guy dance to EDM. I'm like, what am I doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, and I'm like, I gotta block that. Like, this, if I was learning something, fine. But here I am
Yeah.
watching absolute garbage, and it's like I gotta shut this off.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I've had to limit myself significantly. And it is just a lot of nonsense now too. I've
Yeah.
noticed a lot more of it. I mean, especially like what I've noticed too, I used to really like LinkedIn and I still like LinkedIn. Like
Mhm.
LinkedIn is a weapon if you
Oh
use it
yeah.
right. And so
Yes.
many people don't use it right, which is so frustrating to me. But it's also so much nonsense now. Like,
Mhm.
look at me and here's
Yeah.
why I'm so cool. And
I
here's why
know.
I'm so awesome. It's like, come on.
I'm
Come
excited
on.
to announce that I got this.
Yes. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
good for you.
Good for you.
It's like,
Yeah.
teach me something.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's that platform's a little more frustrating because you can't quite tailor the algorithm. And it's like I
Yeah.
screwed up and added, a bunch of connections early in the day. So it's like you've 20,000 connections. You're never getting that back. Like just the time it
Yeah.
would take to unconnect with 20,000 people. It's like
Yeah.
I'm
And you're
just in it
limited.
now. Yeah.
It's like
Yes.
I
Yeah.
think you're limited to I think it's 30,000 that you can be connected with.
Yeah.
And Brad, the builder in Arizona, who's a friend of mine, he's a weapon on LinkedIn, but he's got 30,000 connections.
Yeah.
So when people want to connect with him, he has to go in, unconnect, and then connect with like a new person. I'm like, dude,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
I'm
I
like, no
I
thanks.
realized that like I got to about 20,000. I was like, this is going to be a problem. So then I
Mm,
stopped accepting connection requests
yeah.
and I still have that buffer, thank goodness. But yeah, Brad, he's another one. His stuff is killer.
Yeah.
And I
Oh, I
I
know.
walked by like one of his builds the last time I was in Arizona. It's up and down this road I walk all the time when
Yeah.
I'm in town. The guy is killing it. The guy's
Yeah.
killing it.
Scottsdale is, I mean, I've been there twice now, and it's such an interesting market
Mhm.
because there's a tremendous amount of wealth, and but it's interwoven with just very mediocre like housing product
Yes.
where it's like you
Yes.
go from that's $1 million home to that one's 36 million. It's
Yes.
like it's like if I'm 36 million, I want to be on a hillside away from people.
Yeah, that's And the house he's building is in the Arcadia neighborhood. And I think the Arcadia neighborhood is the perfect example of that, because there are so many houses there that, like, people, it's very keeping up with the Jones-esque. So it's like, there are some people that are just properly loaded and have just nice houses. But then there's other people that, like, they want their house to look really nice. But you can, just by looking at it, you're like, like, I don't think the materials are all the way there. And it's not that, like, I mean, maybe I am just judging people's houses. I mean, yeah, okay, cool. I'm judging people's houses, but it's like, I kind of know what this is. This is like putting lipstick on a
you're
pig.
stretching
You're trying
the dollar.
to, yeah.
Like you said earlier, it's like I'd rather if I have $1 million, I'd rather build the best house I can for $1 million, not the biggest house I can.
Yes.
And most people are trending towards the biggest, or maybe a blend, but leaning on the size more than the quality. Where it's like, as long as it doesn't leak. It's like, as long as it doesn't leak. So as long as it's a D+, you're good.
So I moved to Nashville. I moved into a house, and then I went to like a townhouse. It was an old brick building that was converted to a four unit, whatever it is. And it was beautiful. It was so well done, so gorgeous. And Nashville's very frustrating because there's no historic standard. So you can just knock down whatever you want and build a pile of shit, which is mostly what's happened. But this place is like, the guy that built it took the time, put the money into it, and it's gorgeous. But I'm never home. And with where the business is at right now, it's like, why am I spending so much money on where I live right now? This is just stupid. So then I cut my living expenses over 50% and moved above somebody's garage in their backyard. And so I have like maybe 500 square feet right now. And even just that, like, that has simplified my life so much. And then I say this because I live in this one little space. My kitchen's right here. My bed's right here. My couch is right here. Everything's just one spot, and it would never work with 4 kids or anybody else. Like, I don't have a door where I live.
Right.
But I go to these people's houses that are giant, and I'm just like looking around. I'm like, what do you do with all this? Like, do you have like a calendar in which you like, well, I haven't been in this room in the past 30 days, so maybe I got to hang out in this room. Like,
imagine if you map that out, like how often someone like where they spend most of their time,
like a heat map.
Exactly what I was just going to say is a heat map. Like, and they were like, man, I only go in my bedroom and my kitchen. It's like, and I got 13,000 square feet. What is this room? It's like, that's a dining room.
Yes, that's how I feel like a lot of these houses are. It's like, what do you even do with it? How is that at all practical? And then I was listening to a podcast. It was,
you know what it is?
Joe Rogan.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Go, continue.
No, I was going to say, what it is they want to have everything in one spot. So it's like, I want a big house, so when I throw a party, it's like, how often do you throw a party? It's like, once a year. It's like, so why not rent a venue? It's like, no. It's like, but why? Like, you can rent a venue for $5,000.
I also think it's like an identity thing, because
there's that too,
Well, yeah, which is like obvious, like, of course, but it's they were saying, like, especially that older generation, they've bought these houses for like $1 million, now they're like $5 million, and they couldn't ever afford, like, they're 65 years old, 67 years old, they couldn't afford anything else, so like their whole net worth is tied up in this house, and their whole value in society is tied up in this house. And I think it was a comedian like joking, you go to Thanksgiving and your parents are talking about how much money they've made on their house, and it's this giant house, and it's just 2 of them, and it's 6 bedrooms, and you're like scraping dollars together to try to make rent on your 1-bedroom studio in the city, and it's like, oh my God, that kind of is true. Like, that is true. Because that's where a lot of people are.
Dude, it's where I live, like in South Boston. It's those homes you could have bought 10 years ago. You could have bought a single family for like $300,000, and now a single family is $3 million.
Yeah,
and then you get the dichotomy of the people that are pissed off that everyone's coming in making housing so expensive, but they're selling their house that they paid not even 300, they paid $30,000 for it for $3 million.
Yeah.
It's like, but that's feeding into the problem here.
Well, and then they think they're like some real estate tycoon because they bought it, like when the market was the market, and just by living there, it's appreciated. And then they attribute their financial success to their intelligence. Like, wait a minute.
Like, I knew back in 1972, this was the best investment I'd make. It's like, no, you didn't.
That.
No, you didn't.
Going back to the big house, the spec house you're building, how did you choose where you're building it?
I mean, I had looked at it. How did I choose it? I guess it was probably more, it was available. It was on the market for a while. I met the kid that owned it. It was a complicated site. It was up a big hill. It had wetlands, had a stream, an active stream. And there was a lot of reasons as to why I thought a lot of people didn't want to be on that property, especially as a spec, because of the risk. But then when I connected with Vincent, the architect, him and I chatted about it, and he really kind of uncovered the potential here. It's like, man, this is really beautiful. It's like we could really take advantage of the stream and situate this house in a way that celebrates this, rather than being like the traditional, like, screw that, cut all the trees down, flatten the lot, build the house.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was really what it came down to. And then we had this whole idea of putting the garage underground, and then underneath, like a land bridge. It started as a land bridge, and now it's more of a wood bridge, but this bridge that's above the garage entrance. But doing that, we were like, man, like, we're running the risk of potentially hitting ledge. Now, for anyone that's following me, that potential turned into, the second bucket that we put into the ground, we hit ledge, and we spent 3.5 weeks hammering. So that was tough. And it was to the tune of probably 80 grand of just like thum, 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 and scraping it out of there. We had one section, we went down almost 14 feet, and it was from grade, 14 feet solid ledge. And you look at it now, and when you're on site, it's hard to it's hard to understand it when you see it in video, but when you're on site, you stand in that hole and you look, and it's just a 14-foot vertical face of rock. Like, no matter who you are, you like, they would turn to me and be like, "You seriously hammered that?" I was like, I didn't have an option. The whole, like, we would have had to change the whole design of this house.
Yeah. I guess that was my next question was, is this the one you had to dig through all that rock and basically dig this giant hole? And so you answered my question. Yeah. Yes, this is the one that you had to dig a big hole for.
Yeah, the house was situated up on a hill, and it had a full basement. It had no signs of ledge interrupting the basement. But back in the 80s, no, I'm sorry, they built that in I think the 60s. But back when they built it, it was, they basically just cleared just enough for the full basement, and then the garage sat on top of solid ledge. And that's why this had this crazy steep driveway that just, would have never been, we would have never been able to sell the house driving up a driveway that steep. So it's just not welcoming. So we had to get that elevation down, the 12 feet or so that we needed to get that garage down on the quote unquote basement level.
I see. But it's not just like a basement as in a hole. You can drive up the driveway into
the driveway is actually now right off the street. So you drive flat off the street into the garage.
So you drive into the garage.
And then the house is above you.
It's above it. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So then you have the garage, and then you have living space and mechanical space in the basement. And then you walk up, and then you're on the first floor elevation. That is level with the backyard.
I was going to say, then it's level with, that's so cool. That's so cool. Growing up, there was we went to Hawaii one time, Maui. I think it was the Grand Waikiki or something, maybe Grand Wailea, I think it is. And it just blew my mind because you walk in and you're on ground, and then it opens up and you go down the stairs, and then you're still on the ground. You're like, how did they do this? What kind of
Yeah.
what kind of witchcraft is this? As a kid, you can't even comprehend. You're like, I was on the ground up there and now I'm on the ground down here, but I've changed elevations, so something's
Yeah.
not right here. But it's so cool because, like you said, a lot of times it's just like, let's just level it because it's easier and just build a square and then build up from there. But taking advantage of the contouring, I think, is
Mm-hmm.
so sweet. It is so cool when buildings do that.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because when we bought a brownstone that we live in now, and when you're standing on the street, it's 2, 3, 4 levels. So it's you
Uh-huh.
have the 3 levels, and then you have the one level that's like halfway in the sidewalk.
Yeah.
But then you get in the house and you walk down to that level, and but then there's another level below it. And then you walk,
Uh,
and then when you get to that level, you walk out the back and you're at grade. So there's
uh,
this like significant story and a half change from the front of the brownstone to the back. So when people are
uh-huh.
walking through, it's like, wait, I thought I was already in the basement. It's like, no, there's
Uh-huh.
another level.
That's
Um,
fun.
yeah, it does it. It kind of plays tricks with your mind.
Yeah. Um, how long have you been doing the social media thing for
Almost 10 years.
officially? So since you began the business, essentially.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, actually, yeah, I was doing it right when I started my business.
Yeah.
I wasn't. I mean, not as seriously. It was more just you know upload a photo, throw a filter on it, and talk about what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
But it was probably within the first year that I got you know someone that reached out via Instagram saying, "Hey, I saw what you got. Like, I saw it was a deck I was building. It was all curved wood. I saw the deck that you were building in Winchester with all that curved mahogany, and I saw the tools that you use. You seem to know what you're doing. I'd love to chat." And that was
Uh-huh.
at that moment I realized that there was an opportunity here, and that's when my personality is I get obsessed over like whatever I'm interested in, and that became a huge interest. And is right when Gary Vaynerchuk started, doing Daily V. It was
Uh,
ask Gary V, and then the Daily V, and I saw that, and I was like, man, I should document what I'm doing.
uh-huh.
And from there, it was I brought on Doug at the time part time, and it was 2014 I started my business, and I think he came on full time in 2018,
Hmm.
and he's just been filming ever since.
I think, and it goes to this spec home. It's like, that's just so much potential to document that from
Oh
start to
my god.
finish. And that's why I think I love following people like you and Brad and others who build houses, because like the first time you see it, it's this rendering. And then you start to see it get built, and then it goes from here to here to here to here, and you follow along for the whole 18 months. And then it's like, oh yeah, it's done. And they're moving in. And you
Yeah.
realize, whoa, I've been following this one project for 18 months. I didn't even realize it. And it is so entertaining because it's like one thing to learn from Nick. Here's some cabinets over here, here's some trim over here, here's like
Mhm.
how we're doing the outside. I don't know any of the technical terms. It's like bits and pieces, but then if I can like weave together a storyline and
Yeah.
follow something, because it'll be sometime like somebody will be building a chicken coop. I could give a shit about chicken coops right now. I don't have a yard, have no potential for chicken coops in my life right now, but I'll be, for whatever reason, following along this
Yeah.
this random backyard chicken coop build with like, it's like me and 27 other people like
Mhm.
following this thing because they, it's just like somebody from high
You
school or
wanna see
something
the
like
end
that.
result. You wanna see what happens.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like
How many
halfway through, you're like,
chickens fits in that coop?
yes, like why am I so invested in this? But it is cool. And to see that on this grand scale with this house like this, it's like, who else is really taking you through a process of building a house like this? Not many other people.
Yeah, there's a lot of, like, the how-to videos. There's a lot of the building science videos.
Yeah.
There's, a lot of the final result videos, but
Mm.
there's few that are documenting step by step. And we actually had a discussion this morning that we're gonna change up a little bit the format on how we document this and do it more intentionally chronological,
Mm-hmm.
and have more interviews with myself and Vincent, the architect, and potentially even some of the trades. where it's like we'll just film all month and then sit down and interview what happened that month and talk about it. And then that way it's more like structured. Hey, this is what happened this month. And then we'll have a 12 episode series of the project that we
Yeah.
have chronological. And then from there, once it's done, then you have, I mean, terabytes of content that you can cut up anything you want. You can do time
Mhm.
lapse, you can do before and afters, you can do, you can talk about how to, you can talk about the story, whatever you want.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that like ultimately that's going to be what is allows us to be successful in finding that client. It's also why we are doing the renderings and why we're getting the right people involved, even on the rendering side. We didn't just hire a rendering company. We work with Dark Studio. They're,
Mhm.
they're more than legit in that space. And they're artists when it comes to visual renderings. And frankly, there's there's a tremendous cost behind that. But we
Yeah.
needed to make sure that what it looked like before we built it was true to what it was going to look like when it's built, but also true to the messaging that we were going to tell over the next year and a half of what this project is and who it's for.
I am, though, the one thing I'm disappointed about in the renderings is you didn't have a perfectly balanced interracial family playing in the lawn.
We don't have any people in the renderings.
I know. It was a missed
They've been
opportunity.
they've been working tirelessly to render a version of you.
Yeah, perfect. No, I like seeing the architectural renderings with, like, it's completely racially balanced. There's a
Yeah,
electric vehicle out front. You're like, "All right, I see what's going on here."
it's funny. They sent me an animation the other day of a vehicle pulling in, but it's a Maserati.
There you go.
Um,
See? Proper.
I
Well
was
done.
like, "Oh, that's cool," but I did plan on having Porsche sponsor the event when we launch this, so I should have him re-render
Ah.
that.
Ah. Yeah, and to think, like, once this is done, you'll be able to get a lot of mileage out of this because you've already done
Like,
stuff with
yeah.
architectural. You did what do you Architectural Digest?
Yeah, Architectural Digest. I have a that I had a lot of fun doing it. It was painting me to be something I wasn't. Like I was going in these old buildings talking about potential, and I was getting phone calls saying, "Hey, I want to renovate my house in Goshen, New York." I'm like,
Uh,
that was just a video I did for AD. But I have more interest in getting them to follow along with what we're doing with something like White Oak, where
yeah,
it's like, hey, here's the video series that you should be promoting that we post once a month, and you can follow along what it takes to build a house like this.
yeah,
Because you
yeah.
asked the question, the only other person that's doing this or a series is Grand Designs
Mm,
on Netflix, or they're actually on a
mm,
bunch of, but they're in Australia, New Zealand, and like London, like Europe somewhere, and
yeah,
they they follow along a build. It's an hour-long TV show. Most of the time, it's very much a homeowner-driven build. They might have a builder, but it's like the homeowner's documentation of I'm building my house that is insane architecturally, and they will follow that build for however long it takes to accomplish it. Sometimes
mm,
those are over a 5-year span, but they're not filming, every step of the way. They're checking in, at points in the project. So you're not chronologically seeing the house being built. You're just, touching base at the high stress moments that the client will face, and you get some of the behind the scenes, and that's all I care about. I'm just like going on behind the scenes.
yeah,
Like, what are you doing? How you building that? Where
yeah,
we're trying to basically bridge the storytelling with something like This Old House, where they walk you through, what they're doing. I guess I explained the other day is that we don't want like our videos are not designed to be how to, and the message isn't how, it's why.
hmm
And when we talk about details and the things that we're doing, it's not how we do it, it's why we do it.
hmm
And ultimately leading back to the intentionality and quality and craftsmanship.
Which is why I think I enjoy following along because it's just like I just appreciate the logic behind things and the care and the detail. It's like I'm not in the market for a new siding on a house. I'm not designing a house. Like I don't need to know how to do any of this. I'm just appreciative of, oh, it's like, well, if you were to do it this way, there'd be water behind there and you'd probably end
Mhm.
up with a bunch of issues. So we're actually doing it this way. And me knowing nothing, I'm like, oh yeah, that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
And then I scroll to the next video and it's something stupid, but it's like every time I see this stuff, it's like, oh yeah, this makes perfect sense. And I am, like I said, I'm ever since you sent me that rendering, it was probably a little bit ago now.
Mhm.
I've been very excited to see this thing come together because I know, and it's like me, I can't visualize as well. Like I need to see things to really grasp it. I'm not really like I can just see the rendering and put it onto the property and it all makes sense. And so it's like, yeah, you're putting the footings in right now and you're gonna have to build the walls and then put it together. And then like once the house is like shaped up and you get into the detail work, it starts to make a lot of sense to me. And
Yeah.
so I'm mostly excited for that. It's like,
It's
let get me
funny,
get me into the details, like how you putting this thing together, like those finishing touches, because
and
that's what I think I enjoy most.
that's gonna be the hardest part to, like, capture everything, and it always is. It's like there's so much, especially this project. We had a meeting yesterday to review window shop drawings, and we're walking through installation procedure, and they had zoomed in on a section that I hadn't seen yet, and I'm like, "Dude, how how are we putting that in?" And they're
Mm,
walking me through it. I'm like, "No." I'm like, "That screw is coming from the backside that I don't ever have access to." And it just like there's so much detail in this because it's not just a window in a wall. It's a window that's built into a wall that when it's all said and done, you don't see anything but glass. And
mm,
that's not just a detail that you can just like figure out on the fly. It's I'm setting my foundation height at a certain height, so my subfloor floats over it. So when the window goes in, the wood floor hits the glass.
yeah.
And it's just and that's a level of detail that I hope that we can capture. And I'm hoping that by adding like Vincent into the video series and even sharing some of the section views in the drawing, like it starts really painting the picture as to you know what it takes to execute at this level. Because
Hmm.
there's a lot that if I don't communicate it, I'll compete with the product that doesn't require as much thought. And it's like, oh, it's another modern house. It's like, no, no, no. Let me back up and walk you through what it took to execute this wall. Let me
Yeah.
back up and talk you like let me explain to you that the house got redrew from top to bottom because the window changed and the siding has to line up and it has to be within an eighth inch accuracy for the framing of the house.
Mm.
That's what we're talking about here.
Well, and even like again going back to the one I saw that you were doing, I knew the glass had to get basically lifted in through the window, I think it was,
Oh, the one you
and
toured?
just yeah,
Yeah.
and just knowing that it's like you had to go to that, like you didn't need to do that. There were probably 100 other options that were probably way easier from an install standpoint and didn't require some crane
Mhm.
out at
Mhm.
street level lifting it through a multi-story window to get this
Mhm.
beautiful piece of glass in there. But it's
Yeah.
like knowing the background on that. You then see the
Right.
glass and you have so much more appreciation. Like, wow, that's amazing. Or like something stupid I tell people all the time. I have all these dumb facts in my head. And so you go by an Apple store, the glass, they have the biggest pieces of glass.
Mhm.
You won't see another storefront like that. And
Mhm.
when they initially started to design these Apple stores, the glass, they couldn't manufacture glass like that. It didn't exist. And so they had to create this process specific to Apple to build
Mhm.
these windows exactly to the size that they wanted these windows to be. And it's like, you know, anybody else walking by that doesn't give a shit. But I read about the whole process of how they had to create this new process to
Yeah.
build these glass panels to begin with. And I
Yeah.
have now so much more appreciation. I'm like, that's
Of
not just a
course.
glass wall. There's so much engineering and thought and design that went into that. Uh, and
They have
I love that.
like a four-story building in Boston, and they have a self-supporting all glass spiral staircase. And most people just go in there and they walk up the stairs and it is what it is.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, do you understand that this is 100% glass self-supporting, spiraling up 4 flights of stairs that's 8 feet wide. No. It's like, well, you should. Because
Yeah.
you won't see that somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm like, I hadn't really talked to you about this project.
I have a video, the animation of it, and I'll send you more.
Oh yeah.
It's cool. Like
Yeah.
I'm really excited. I'm excited for everything. Like I'm excited for my team. I'm excited for the brand. I'm excited for Vincent and his team. And then I'm excited for whoever buys it. Where it's like this is, we're truly like this is a product. It's not a custom home. It's we've done the work. We've spent thousands of hours in design and iteration and consideration as to everything. And materials included.
Can you sell it at any time? Can someone come to you today and say, I'll take it? Or do you kind of have to build it first?
No, if someone offered me the money that we want for it today, we would take it. But there would be a very strict, you're not changing. Like you can't come in here and just change everything. And I say that knowing that if they had legitimate changes that were aligned with our goal, yeah, of course we'll consider it. But you're not going to come in here and just turn it into a big white box. We've spent way too much time and effort, and that will be the hard part. Is that if someone does approach me like that I'm going to have a hard time. I just have to have the balls to say no.
Yeah.
Where like in an ideal situation, I build it 100%, put it on the market, and sell it at that point. But the problem is you're the financial side of it. You want to de-risk. You want to de-risk as soon as you can.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. No, and rich people are used to getting their way typically. My one design change would be I would require an aquarium built into the house.
That's fine. We can do that.
Yeah.
We'll do it on the 9 foot by 9 foot skylight on the roof. So you just look up like you're in an aquarium.
Oh, that would be sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you're at one of those big like in those tunnels where you're walking through the aquarium.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. All right.
All right. Got to go up on the roof to feed the fish.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me start saving. Sweet. Well, this stupid platform keeps freezing, but we've talked for an hour.
Yeah. Try StreamYard. You can also live stream the podcast while you're recording.
Really?
Direct to YouTube.
No,
we did. We only had like 5 or 6 people watching it because we always record it like during the workday. And some people liked it, but we didn't see a ton of value in it.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, well, we'll find a different platform and then have you back on or maybe we'll see you up in Boston.
Yeah, well, Boston, or I'll come down to Nashville again.
Yeah. Yeah, when were you last year?
I think it was 2 years ago.
Probably 2 years ago.
Yeah.
That sounds about right. Yeah. Come down here with your wife. Find someone to take care of all the children. Come down for the weekend. It's that easier.
That's a tall. I got a cat and 2 dogs too, man.
They can take care of themselves.
The cat can, yeah.
Yeah.
Dogs no. Kids no.
All right. Well, we'll end the recording here. Appreciate you coming on. I know you got better things to do, so it's good to catch up, though.
Yeah, likewise. I'll send you those renderings, that animation. Check it out.